Hi there. I wanted to give you a quick bonus video here just to show you how to get your ink into this little container to make it easier to use your ink without getting too much ink on the pen like we talked about in class. So perhaps this is something you could do to prepare for the next class rather than doing it right there at your computer. You can certainly continue to dip in your ink container, but you, as I said before, we want to be aware as to how deep we dip into there, because you don't want to get too much, we don't want to get too much ink into the holder or up above the holder. It's just going to make a big mess. So I want to show you an easy way to be sure to get ink in here without making a big mess, and also ways that you can also keep your ink next to you, whether it's on your right or your left, without risk or less risk of it spilling and making a mess. So let me start by showing you how to get some liquid into this, or your ink into this little container without making a mess. And you may do this with cooking and things like that. If I poured this out quickly, it may be okay, but sometimes, you know, things drip back on your, you know, whatever you're pouring from. So I'm going to show you a little tip on how to avoid that. So if you get this is just a broken paintbrush, but if you get a end of a paintbrush, or even a toothpick or a popsicle stick or something, you know, long and thin like this, we can use that to guide the ink into our container. And all we want to do is fill up this container pretty close to the top. Now, if you have a squeeze, a little small, gosh, what are they even called? Little squeeze bottle or something, the little nib at the top, you can use that as well and transfer it. But this is a way you can do to pour it. So my camera's in a weird angle, so I'm gonna get my arm out of the way. I'm gonna put my toothpick or my popsicle stick or whatever it is right up against the edge. It's touching the edge. And I'm gonna pour, and the ink will run down into the container rather than back along the side. And then I keep it attached, I lift it up, let it drip a little bit. Now all I have then is this possible little drip right on the edge. Now we could just lift it up and let it go, but I should have told you this first. Have a paper towel handy. Grab that paper towel. No drips. Okay, so the capillary action is the ink running down your tool, whatever that is, and that it just runs down there instead of running down the side of your jar. Now, of course, I placed, you can't see it, but I placed down my little tip on my paper and made a mess there. So you got to be careful where you put this when you're done. But of course, that can you can throw the toothpick away, or you can wipe off whatever you use there. So that's a least messy way, but if you could do that ahead of time, then that would prevent you having to do it while we were sitting in front of the computer. Okay, so I'm going to close that up, and now I'm going to use my little jar instead. So now you can see when I dip, I can't go any further, so I'm not going to get too much ink on. Now if you think it's too, if you need more in there, and eventually you will as you use the ink, you just have to add more. But you can also just kind of tilt. Again, show you, I'm tilting the nib to get it in there as well, just to get the ink all the way up the top, but you won't go too far. Okay, and then these nice little containers do have a lid for storage. Okay, great. So one more quick thing though, as it's sitting to the side of where you're writing, I did mention in class that you could take the little tape donut. So just as I showed you in class, you can take a little piece of masking tape and make the little donut where you fold it back on itself like that, and then just stick it on the bottom of your, oops, sorry, my hand's in the way, stick it on the bottom of your container, and then you can stick it to your table, so when you use it, it won't tip. There's also other things you can do. You can use the tape with other things, or you can find maybe a lid. Now this has a hole in it, which I can talk to you about in a second, but just a lid to like a yogurt or something container. Just place your jar just in the lid. Okay, mine, like I said, has a hole in it. That's for another use. But you can just place it on the lid, so if it were to spill, it would spill in your lid, not on your table. Or even a little plastic or paper plate. If you just keep it on that surface, if you tipped it by mistake, it would just stay in there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you those couple little tips about getting your ink into the bottle and not making a big mess. Again, I will contact you regarding a study group, and we'll see you next time.